Stay in the know with Kaicho Radio. Join us daily, Monday to Friday at 13 hours 30 for COVID-19 and Elections Watch with senior journalist Leonard Gildarie and Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Join us as they keep you updated on the latest news on elections 2020 and the COVID-19. COVID-19 and Elections Watch only on Kaicho Radio. Kaicho Radio, the radio with a difference.
COVID-19 tips sponsored by Dex Soap. 1. Practice social distancing. 2. Wear your mask when leaving the house. 3. Wash your hands regularly for 20 seconds using our Dex Soap. 4. Cover your nose and mouth with a disposable tissue or flex elbow when you cough or sneeze. Choose Dex Soap for that extra cleanliness. Dex Soap is affordable and available nationwide.
It is 13 hours 32 in Guyana, and it is time for the COVID-19 and Elections Watch, where we keep you up to date on everything COVID and everything elections. This afternoon, at the helm of the program, as usual, Mr. Leonard Gildarie, senior journalist of Kaicho News, and his co-host, Mr. Dr. Uncle Yog Mahadeo. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
So, good afternoon. Right across this beautiful nation of ours, I see my good colleague there, my co-host, Dr. Yog Mahadeo, looking all sprite. It's a very good day. Why is it a good day? It's 128 days since the March 2nd elections, and that's why we should be happy. Am I being sarcastic? I'm not sure. But what I could tell you, it's Wednesday, July the 8th at 3 o'clock. We're going to be cutting this program here. That's because we'll be joined on a live feed from the Caribbean Court of Justice, which is going to bring you the decision by that court with regards to an appeal to the Court of Appeal decision that was made more than a week ago. So we are going to be joining you there. This morning, we had somebody called some freak storm across the city, parts of the coastlines, I think on the west Demerara area. Some fences, some sheds came tumbling down. Lots of wind. People say that we having a little hurricane. It was something that was passing, we understand. Yog, were you affected?
Very much so. That breeze was extremely loud and forceful. I remember it reminded me when I was studying in Barbados, and they had I can't remember which hurricane it was. And I found myself I was walking on the road, and I suddenly found myself running, and I couldn't stop. So last night reminded me. But yes, I mean, all around there, trees and billboards and stuff like that has fallen over. I know in Berbice, I know in Demerara as well. There's lots of places where, thankfully, nobody was hurt.
Very good. And so I think I didn't know anything about any storm on these bank there. What I knew is that the place became hot all of a sudden, and then I woke, and then it was blackout. So I had to, in the speed, I think it becomes second nature now. I'm not sure about you, Yog. The minute I see blackout, I'm there heading to all the different points in the house, trying to unplug everything because, you don't want to take chance. GPL, the power comes on back, and then the equipment is there. I had some bad cases, cameras and everything that spoiled. I don't want to, can't afford it at this point in time. But enough of that. We're going to head straight into what is coming up.
But Leonard, I was a little, I don't know if there was any forecast, any warning of that thunderstorm and high winds. I don't think I saw anything. And that's a little bit worrying, isn't it?
Yes, I could remember a couple of years back, Yog, before we get into the meat of the things here. There was a major unveiling of a facility in Timiri, the Doppler radar station, I think it was. Little power plants. We say that's the end of blackout, and the next couple of months you back to square one again, like this morning, for example. Well, we know somebody say our system is so sensitive now it's so updated technologically wise that whenever there is a hard wind, the system automatically shuts off everything to protect us. Um, it is what it
That's
is.
a that's a very advanced system, and I think there is a little bit of a problem up at is it at the East Bank area with some building collapse. So we hope that the workers there are safe.
Uh-huh.
I think the police and fire are both on the scene. We hope that the workers, I think it's a bank's building, but still waiting for some. But our shout out to them and stay safe, everyone, if you're in the area.
Where is that?
Let me get the information for you. It should be Banks CIH. I don't know if it's in the compound, but let's get the information.
No problem. We'll wait on that. I know that on the west coast of Demerara today, I think it was Guy America at somewhere Metamarzog or so, a whole shed came tumbling down, and so they were doing some cleaning up. There were lots of videos going around of that freak storm. But let's get right down into it. 3 o'clock, it's supposed to be a very, very clear ruling or a decision that's going to be handed down based on what we heard from Attorney at Law Kamal Ramkaran last evening in room 592. The more that we talk to our experts and some of the things, and not too long ago, I did read a post and I saw you posted, I posted it from Ronald Bartsmith, I think it is, attorney at law. And he would have talked about the history, his role that he would have played in the formation of the Caribbean Court of Justice, and its credibility in the whole onset. And maybe we could have a discussion as to that, because, as you know, heading into this, we would have gone to the CCJ for all kinds of things. One, when Jagdeo, somebody wanted Jagdeo to run for a third term, they went there and they went to block him, and the court handed down. It was 2 terms at full stop. Everybody accepted that. We look to a couple of years in the future now, and it seems as if the shoes is on the other foot, and you can't accept the credibility of CCJ. This is something that we need to look back at, and this is so divided. A couple of people who would have so divided this whole nation by talking absolute nonsense when it comes to the Caribbean Court of Justice and its credibility. On one hand, when it's beneficial to you, you don't have a problem with it, and next week you have a problem about its credibility. When you see the same set of people pushing the same set of nonsense, then you realize that these same set of people is somebody that you should never ever listen to again in the future, because they have spoken, and what comes out of their mouth, or what has come out of their mouth, it has absolutely no credibility. So don't talk about credibility when you have no credibility. We will come back and we are going to be looking at some of these people, because they have been playing a big role, Yog. It hurts me every single day in the deep divisions they have caused in our society. People that I love, people that I believe that would have had an ounce of brain in them, would have taken some stands, and I'm wondering, I asked them, why did you do that? We end up parting ways in a very amicable way, but I couldn't understand it, and we have so divided our nation because of the political stance that we've taken. But heading straight to the front page of Kaichor, as we normally do every day, Yog, very quickly, July the 8th, 2020, Wednesday, July the 8th, 2020. This is going to be a very important day in our history, in our modern history, when the history books are written. That is because it's going to be a key ruling as to whether what comes out of it. It all depends whether we mature enough. But the front page of Kaiser News: Granger denies Mingo's vote rigging in the Washington Post. So Mr. Granger, President Granger, would have gone had they have quoted him on a story. He says that Mingo did not rig. Mingo found those figures while walking on the road. Well, I'm just saying that. Former APNU MP and Linden Mayor benefit state lands from Nisil. I think this is Jarman Figuera, his brother, and the mayor, Wanika Arundel. You would remember, I think it was Jarman Figuera, bright young guy, keep burst into the spotlight. He was seated next to Charandas Prasad, that parliamentarian. Remember him, Yog? in the National
Yes.
Assembly on December the 21st, 2018. And when Charandas said, yes, yes, what is wrong with you? Charandas said that his hands was black and blue for weeks afterwards because of get some hunches. The thing this was my grandmother would say, get some hunches from German Figueroa. So Figueroa and his brother and Wanika Arundel, days before election, benefited from some lands from Nisil. It was signed off by Minister of Finance Winston Jordan. And I think in two cases it was only advertised in the official gazette after election. So 4 days or so before election, signed. A couple of days after election, it was officially published in
So
the
while
gazette.
everybody was busy, so that nobody could take notice of the Gazette and stuff like that, that's the busy time. And
Yes.
Leonard, sorry to interject, but I would want listeners and viewers to remember that only a couple of days ago, we raised the possibility that all of these people fighting to hold on to power has to be for some financial or other type of gain. And slowly but surely, we are seeing on Kaito News front page every day some new revelation of what's really happening behind the scenes.
Yes, absolutely, Yoga. And so you go on. CCJ rule in Guyana's election recount set for today. It is not on the recount. It has to do, I'd have to check on this. This has to do with an appeal as to an opinion that came before the CCJ, the Court of Appeal. The Private Sector Commission calls on police to enforce law, rule of law, without favor. Very important story. The police has the motto service. I think somewhere along its motto it says service there. So pay attention, Commission of Police. You have a job to do without fear or favor, not any political thing. If there is a ruling, if there is a declaration, you know what you have to do according to the Constitution. U.S. Congressmen support Secretary of State's decision to take action against those undermining Guyana's democracy. And we would have spoken about this yesterday, Yog. This is a gentleman, I think Mr. Posey has told David Granger as president to ensure that he takes the necessary steps to hand over transition based on the recount. Minor buried alive. Sad, very sad for the family. Our deepest condolences. This is a story, another story. Man killed over horse dispute. I think they would have burned this house. I saw a story last evening. Second wave of COVID. International market to lose 2.5 million barrels of oil per day. That's because less demand, I think it is. This is from Rystad Energy. Granger enters major contracts appointments, etc., despite promising not to do so in 2019. So that is an indictment. If you've indicated and made a commitment to the people not to do certain things, how did we go about doing this thing, Mr. Granger? That is what the story is saying here. Yog, let's get right into it. What are we looking at?
Yes.
3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, very
Well,
importantly.
well, Leonard, very importantly indeed, 3 o'clock is that decision that will be handed down from the CCJ. However, I want to caution that whatever the decision handed down from the CCJ, both you and I have been from day one putting forward the notion and the belief that has been supported by legal minds as well, that the decision of the CCJ does not prohibit GCOM from doing what it ought to do in the first place, that is to make a declaration of votes. And votes cast must mean and always has meant valid votes. You cannot take an illegal ballot or an invalid vote. That in the process of the recount, in the process of the first count that happened on the night of March 2nd and the evening of March 2nd, the invalid votes, the vote that did not meet the mark of validity per the section of the laws, were put to one side. That continued to be so during the recount. And GCOM staff, Lowenfield's own secretariat signed off on all the valid votes counted during the recount. And so it has to be that. Whatever way the CCJ go, I don't view it as, it's critical in terms of assessing the Court of Appeals, changing of the Constitution, so to speak, but it really does not deny the electorate of this country from having their votes counted. Every valid vote must count. Leonard, to the last point you made, it's perplexing, it's mind-boggling, it's dangerous, it's you name it, it's bad. The depravity of this incumbent government. They are holding on to power, and they're holding on to power to dole out these contracts and to give away these lands and to do all of these things. We are seeing it every day. They know they lost these elections. They're coming up with one excuse after another. They're all over there. Persons from the PNCs all over there trying to go to talk to everybody about these elections. They're not admitting that they rigged it from day one, and that the reason for the cover-up is so as to disguise all of these contracts. Leonard Granger himself, look, viewers and listeners, check Kaito News today. Granger is quoted as saying the following: my government has accepted that it is now in an interim mode. Government is exercising restraint on its executive authority. Overseas travel by ministers has been restricted to essential. No new policy is being implemented, nor are any major agreements being signed.
He
A
said
couple
that.
of months after, yeah, that's what you check paragraph 3 of that same 4 of that same article. That's what Granger said. Ladies and gentlemen, David Granger lied to this public a couple of months ago. He said, my government has accepted it is now interim mode, and we are not going to sign any agreements. We are not going to sign anything major. We are not going to travel overseas unless it's essential. We are in an interim mode. What's happened? There are multi-million dollars contract for the crude, for crude marketing. There is a $352 million sea defense project. There is a $1 billion Ocean View Hotel. There is a land, hundreds of acres of land that are awarded by NISIL. There's 110 million waterfront property sold by NISIL. There are 44 appointments to different boards. You know, it reeks of absolute disregard for law and disrespect for Guyanese people, Leonard. That is what David Granger, in my mind, represents at this stage: the height of corruption, the height of disrespect for the people of this country. That is what David Granger stands for at this moment.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Yog Mahadeo. It's Elections Watch COVID-19 on Kaito News, Kaito Radio, 99.1, 99.5. You can get us on Kaito Radio Facebook or on YouTube. And on YouTube, we are asking that you subscribe to that YouTube. So whenever we have any live, you're going to be notified right away. So just hit the subscribe button and take it from there. So we are on that right now. So if you don't want to be on Facebook to be viewing us, you can look at the YouTube, and we're also there. And it allows you to comment and make your comments. And so we have right now, we have our WhatsApp. You could also send your messages to 62222 or 226-7453. We will be opening the line in a few moments' time. But in the meantime, let's go back to Dr. Yog Mahadeo, because the elections 2020, it is a critical day in terms of the entire process. 4 months have passed. In fact, it's 128 days since the March 2nd elections. By no means acceptable. It should be acceptable by any citizens of any country or any part of the world that you have a government that has not been formed. That's because there's been objections from one stage to a next stage about one thing to another thing, and it has been unbelievable what has transpired over the last 4 months. The people have been held in limbo while we are grappling with COVID-19. We have one community, Yog, that has been grappling, especially with this entire thing. We saw a couple of them came out yesterday. They are fighting the lockdown that was ordered by the authorities there. When you look at that, and when you look at in any given day, at any given time, this would have made the headlines, would have been the top story of the day, how that is being handled. We would have been talking about our nurses and our doctors and the policemen who have not had a day away from their work. Well, they would have had, but the fact is they're in line, I think it is the term. meaning that they are called 24/7 now because of elections. And as long elections are not over and closed, they are going to be on that. Many of them have been suffering, they've been complaining. When you look at the health situation now, we almost running out of nurses and doctors because many of them who would have been in contact with COVID-19 patients have been isolated. So we're running almost at the bottom of the barrel right now when it comes to handling this COVID-19. In the meantime, our little Neros have been twiddling the thumbs, Yog. I came up, when you talk about Nero the other day, it brought my mind so far back about some way out country in which you have a little dictators running around the place doing things with a little army. And God help us if people are contemplating that we even going in that direction. That's not something should be contemplating, because that is not something that this country is prepared to allow. And let us make it very, very clear. Our tolerance, our patience is running out at the moment. The rule of law has to stand. And you may have your view as to that. Well, let us take it on. And last night, Yog, before I give it back to you, I was noticing since yesterday they have set the dogs loose on Elections Watch and COVID-19. You see a lot of fake profiles attacking a lot of our people who have been here, decent people who want to make a contribution towards this country. Yog, they've been going after them using bad words and so. So guess what? As you come up, we're going to weed you out because there's no tolerance for you. If you want to be here, you listen, you make a contribution in a very respectful manner. Or other than that, you're out. We have no. We have been mandated by the Guyana National Broadcasting Authority to ensure that we keep it clean, and we are going to keep it clean. Over to you, Yog.
Thank you, Leonard. And today we got to realize that after the CCJ, Leonard, maybe we should do some hypothetical scenarios. What could possibly happen? And if you recall about 2 months ago, Leonard, when you and I did this, a lot of people told us afterwards that we gave these people the ideas. But it's not a matter of giving ideas. It's a matter of assessing what could possibly happen next. What cards Lowenfield and PNC and the entire crew has up their sleeves to continue to thwart the will of the electorate in this country, and to bring it out there so that we can all prepare for it. So, Leonard, while this afternoon the CCJ is going to make its decision, I would like to ask viewers and listeners to be aware of what's the next likely move that Lowenfield and his team of PNC leaders and supporters will do next. And we discussed this last night in room 592, Leonard. Option one would be that the CCJ, and again, it really doesn't matter what the CCJ decides today. It's always about valid votes. So Lowenfield will continue along the line to say, well, he has a definition of valid votes. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, Lowenfield has taken instructions from APNU AFC because nobody verified whether those persons voted or not. APNU AFC said these people ought not to have voted. No investigation was done. Lowenfield took that instructions from them, and he decided 115,000 votes must be burnt. Now, we don't know if your vote would have been thrown away by this man, mine, or any one of us. He just made he is the judge, jury, and executioner, and he has destroyed 120,000 votes. So what are the next things that could happen, Leonard? The guys, Lowenfield himself, could come out tomorrow or next day. He has to present a report to the commission. So he could, here's option one. He will prepare a report to the commission that is the same thing. He is going to determine on his own stead what will happen. So what could happen out of that option one is that the chairman can refuse or the chairman can accept his report. If the chairman refuses his report, he goes back. And you know what I think? I hate to say it, but I think another Mingo will happen. I think that he's going to pretend to be sick or he's going to pretend to be ill, and he got to take a week's sick leave, and he's going to probably receive oxygen like what Mingo did until they can come up with another idea as to how next to rig these things. I think this man is going to take sick leave for a week. After the week, He's going to say he can't continue, and then they will just put his deputy in, and we're back to square one again. So where does that leave the Guyanese people, Leonard, and how long should the Guyanese people continue to be pushed in a corner by a man who is Mr. Unbothered? Granger is not bothered by the corruption he and his team are carrying on with every day. All the contracts that they're signing, all the lands they're giving away. And no wonder his small band of merry men continue to fight and agitate and hold up the lie about this election, because they're all getting land and they're all getting state asset and they're all getting a lot of things. So, Leonard, in my view, that seems to be some of the things that might play out. That is Mr. Lowenfield. And the other thing is that if he will prepare a report, if he will prepare a proper report that complies with the law, then the commission is not going to be having a quorum. And the commission will have to then say, okay, we'll convene or reconvene 24 hours later. That second meeting will have another problem. Somebody else is going to be sick. So I see, and here is why I say that. It's not being negative, Leonard. It's being pragmatic. It's being pragmatic. Mm-hmm. They have done so for 128 days. And unless, I don't see, no court has issued any instructions or any order, and no court has asked to make an order to have them act with any speed and respectability. But unless the international community now puts its foot down, we are not going to have things done in a hurry. I will say in closing, I would want to be pleasantly surprised if by Friday morning there is a declaration and President-elect Ali is sworn in.
Well, let's see what happens there, and that is based on the recount. What we do know right now, let's look Yog very quickly, because I don't think anybody has been paying much attention to this angle here, and it has to do with the media who's come out in support of the situation. On one side, it's the opposition, and when we say opposition, new parties, the People's Progressive Party. On the other side, the coalition. Could we just go along the line and see what happens here? So, largely, the critical ones have been coming from the private media, and all the private media, except maybe, I think maybe two I could count, has come out in support of the opposition. Or not the opposition, but in support of what the recount would have said, which would have benefited the opposition. So, do you believe, let's assume that you push for a swearing-in back of Granger, that they push and somehow it happens, do you believe it's going to be an easy ride? What do you believe is going to happen there?
Leonard, look, if from September, let me repeat this thing, viewers and listeners. In September, David Granger lied to this nation and said the following. He said, it is accepted that we are now in an interim mode. Granger said that. That's not Leonard's word or Kaiser News' word. It's Granger's word. He said his government is now in a interim mode. There will be only essential overseas travel, and there will not be any major agreements that will be signed. They lied, because from September to now, Leonard, billions with a B has been signed in contracts, has been given away to various persons that's close to the party, close to the political, close to Granger and his team, while they are busy hoodwinking their own supporters about these election results. Over the last 128 days, how many things have we seen on Kaiser News front page? Land being given away. Former parliamentarians of the PNC. No wonder they're jumping up and down. They are in receipt of state lands. Lands that were sold to them illegally by a man who promised to this nation that he was not going to do that. So, Leonard, if they get themselves sworn into power, which is one of the options that will happen, it means they have not been able to run this country for 5 years. They were in office, they took a $14 billion gold surplus and they ran it down. They took a surplus in the central funds, they ran it down to a negative $70 billion. They're not going to get oil money. They're not going to get gold money. They're not going to get anything. So if they insist on staying in power, it means they're going to tax everyone more than we can bear, more than we can manage. Leonard, the truth is, those people who have joined their protest over the past week or two, they probably receive more money in their hands in this past 2 weeks for protesting than they received in the 5 years for doing an honest day's job, for maintaining their job. And those who are not, I want everybody in this country to remember that it is people who are being paid by your taxpayers' money that were in these protest lines. You are paying them for this nonsense, like we are paying the Guyana rag to carry the kind of print crap that they're carrying every day.
And Yog, as we're speaking right now, I did indicate to you that based on our what we were told, that ABC and EU countries would have met with or were planning to meet with the with representatives of the coalition as early as yesterday. We understand that this morning that they would have met, and there was, although the statement that is coming out here from the public, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, does not give any indication. I will read it to you in a very short. It's a very short statement, but I was told, we were told here at Kaiser News that the diplomats from the Western countries, especially, would have indicated to the government what they expect, and of course, this statement here does not reflect that. So I'm going to read it. It's a photo release coming from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it says, High Commission of Canada to Guyana, Lillian Chatterjee, High Commissioner of the United Kingdom, Greg Quinn, Ambassador of the U.S., Sarah Ann Lynch, and Ambassador of the European Union, Fernando Ponce Canto, early today met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Karen Cummins, to discuss areas of mutual interest to their respective states. It does not say anything, but our sources tell us that the issue of elections was a key and sore point and would have been raised, and there was a call for an adherence to the results, for it to be respected, and for it to be acted on in accordance to those results. And so it was made very, very clear today. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs statement did not reflect that. We're hoping that there's going to be a joint statement coming out from the Western country today, so we could be able to talk about that. I don't think that you're going to have 4 ambassadors meeting one day on the same day with a key decision from the courts and not have elections 2020 being discussed, as this was a very key point over the last couple of months. And we know that a couple of them, including Greg Quinn, would have come under attack because of its stance. You remember down at the Ashman's building, Greg Quinn would have asked Karen Cummins, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, what she was doing there, because she would have met. And there were some observers there, including, I think it was Owen Arthur, who took umbrage that she was there. And there was some belief or talks about withdrawing of their credentials, the withdrawal of their credentials. So it comes back that there's a lot of anger at this point in time, not only in the diplomatic community, but everybody are looking, they're paying attention, and for them to be meeting at the 11th hour, hours before that decision by the court, the Caribbean Court of Justice, it has to be taken very seriously. And although this statement, Yog, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs does not delve into those aspects of elections, we are told very clearly that this was an issue that was an agenda and it was discussed.
Correct. Leonard, the issue I think Guyanese would have is, how do you trust anything that David Granger or his merry band around him, anything that they say, because they have purposely lied all the time. I mean, here I want to remind everybody, 2018, Granger and Nagamutu came out openly and said, oh, we lost the confidence vote in the parliament and we have to go to elections and we have to do this and do that. And what happened? 1 year after, they spent over $1 million of taxpayers' money to go to the CCJ to be told that 33 is a majority of 32. Is a majority of 65, sorry, over 32.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing after the other, they have lied. They lied. He said that he observes and he adheres to the Constitution. That's a lie because he unilaterally appointed Patterson to head GCOM. He said he's going to abide by GCOM, yet he and his supporters bring up one lawsuit or another, one legal challenge after another to stop GCOM's work, to frustrate GCOM's work. And today, they have said so many lies. He came out publicly and said, what SOPs? I never saw an SOP. I dealt with a spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. Now, he reminds me of that song, You Hear Lie? You remember that old song that was there some years ago?
Yeah.
Because, so Leonard, when the diplomatic community goes to meet with this gentleman, whatever he says to them, how can they believe it? Because he would say something now, and by this afternoon, when he goes to his masters, they're going to tell him, no, you can't say that. You got to backtrack. And you know, Lowenfield got to sick, or Lowenfield got to do this, or somebody else got to pull some rabbit out of a hat for them. So I don't know how the diplomatic community can believe them at all.
Mm-hmm. So we head right now to some comments because people are getting a little agitated by what is happening. Patience, folks. There is going to be at 3 o'clock. We're going to be breaking in another 50 minutes or so. We're going to open the lines in a very short while. Let's read very quickly some comments. We ask the patience, let this thing work itself out, and we're going to take it from there. Dear APNU brothers and sisters, your party has been giving out land left, right, and center. How many acres of house land have you gotten? It's time you come to your senses and understand your true position. We've been used as scaffold to get the leaders and the cronies to reach to where they want to go. Except for the promises and the Kool-Aid, there is nothing for us. Whatever we want can only be achieved through democracy. So I'm appealing to all of my brothers and sisters, if you want a good for yourself and your children, swallow your pride and join the ranks of your fellow Guyanese who are fighting for democracy. Together we succeed, divided we fail. The Honorable Brigadier will give you the command as you are. Once again, I'm appealing to my APNU colleagues. Let good sense prevail. Get up, stand up for your right. Join the fight and join the good fight for your right. This is coming from one of our regular viewers, listeners. I think it's very good that we have somebody is asking, put country first. A very good afternoon, both gentlemen. Your work is well appreciated. I've been following this election all this way, and this is my take on the situation, is that the Iron Lady is giving the APNU ministers time to get rid of things that would cause them to be jailed and thief as much as they can, so that all the time in the world to do what they have to do. I'm very frustrated with the whole situation, but I'm not giving up. I'm ready to stand up for democracy. I think we would have heard sometime back that the chairperson, Justice Retired Claudette, saying she cannot do anything because she's constrained by a court order of the Caribbean Court of Justice where it comes to this particular case here. So she can't make a declaration because her hands are tied. In any case, I don't think she can make a declaration. There is certain procedures, certain steps that has to be followed. So Yog, over to you before we head straight into the phone lines.
Well, Leonard, I think I would just like to repeat something we have said every day. And this is, the message coming in from Mark Garnett. And I'd say in response to Mark Garnett that, Mark, stop drinking the Kool-Aid, my brother. We have videos that show where the documents are, in whose possession they were in GCOM. We have videos to show and photos to show that indeed the Secretariat received all the documents from whatever boxes they were. And as well, we got proof to show that it was no other than Mingo and his deputy that instructed the East Coast polling areas to not put the poll books and so forth in the boxes. So it is your own people that are rigging, and you are caught with the rigging, and now you're crying foul. And that's exactly what's happened here. And the other thing too, Leonard, I have reached to the point where there has been some trolls, as you said, on my page and my face social media page as well. And I believe anybody who backs what Granger stands for at this moment is not worthy being my friend. And I just, as soon as they pop up, I block them. I don't have any patience for immorality. We went through this in 2014, 2015, and we did what we had to do, and it is time to do it again. I believe anybody who works and support an immoral leader has to answer a question about their own moral compass.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Yog Mahadeo. If you're joining us now, it's Elections Watch on COVID-19. In a few moments, at around 3 o'clock, we're going to be breaking. We're going to have to bring you a live coverage of that decision by the Caribbean Court of Justice on elections 2020. In the meantime, we're asking you, you could also get us on Facebook, Kite Show Radio on Facebook or on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Very quickly before we head to the phone, which is 226-7453, or you can send us your WhatsApp 6222222. We're going to try to read them. We're receiving tons of messages. Thank you very much for that, people. Good day, gentlemen. Dr. Yog and Pablo Moustache Gildarie. I guess I got a new name now. Yog, I really love our people. Borrowing Freddie's terminology today, morally bankrupt. That's the attitude of squatters. I'm wondering how come low-end frauds. I like this guy. Sense of humor, but let's be respectful. I'm wondering how come low-end frauds report didn't give the squatters 34 seats. Isn't that half of 65? Or should I check with the CCJ? Stay safe. God bless. Democracy will prevail. There's a caller online. Yes. Good afternoon, caller. You on the air?
Hello. Good afternoon, Kaiju Radio.
Yes, you are. You're on air. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just one thing I would like to raise. I'm listening to your radio time after time, and you are the one speaking now when it comes to racism. But then there are times when the radio I listen allow people to call in and discriminate people, like one man calling and this speaking about Keith Lowenfield. And then I don't believe that is right that you are on air and calling the newspaper, like giving it a name by the name of Rag. I don't believe that is right, because you're on air, people listening, and I believe that is wrong. That is my input. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear caller. There's another side to the story. Yog, you have been calling it the Guyana rag. Is there an explanation for that, sir?
Yes, it's a rag. It's a rag because it has dirt printed all over it. It's a rag because it's being used by the politicians to peddle lies every day. Why have I not called the Stabrook News rag or Kaichu News rag? I have not done so because they are very balanced and they're fair. I've called it a rag because it is abusive of the taxpayers' money and of the electorate. All it is doing is pushing APNO, AFC, PNC agenda. Check it every day. In fact, I stop short calling it garbage because it does not have anything worthwhile. It just has political hate on every single part of it. And the people who are there, who makes up that board, I am ashamed for them. They should all resign. That, Leonard, is a travesty upon Guyanese, that board of the Chronicle continues to do what it is doing to us, and having that papers only carry one side, and the side of lie, the side of deceit, the side of the morally bankrupt politicians in this country.
Thank you very much for that, and I think the point came up the last couple of days, and with respect to that caller there, you have a very good point. But let us put it this way: when your money, I'm not sure. Let's look at it this way: everything has to do with money. When you take your money, you want to see that it's spent. If you give it to your kids and they go blow it away, maybe on drugs or something, you would not be very happy. if you take your money and you giving it as a subsidy to a state-owned newspaper, and then it's not reflected, it's not being used, or not everybody could get the views into that newspaper. When they turn around and take that same newspaper and sell it to themselves and take the money from the ministries and the state agencies and pay for it, that's what Yog, I think, would have described as double dipping. These are things that you should not. This is waste of state money. That's money that could be going to buy a couple thousands of masks so people could protect themselves against COVID-19.
Correct.
So let's don't
And,
get
and
it
Leonard,
right. Let's don't get it
and
wrong.
Leonard, just quickly to tell that caller, if the PPP was in office doing that with Chronicle, would you have been happy? I was not happy with the way the rag was still rag in 2015, and I call it rag since then, 2014. I was not happy with the way it was being used as a political party's mouthpiece back then, and I'm certainly not happy. You know, one of the things you can say for every person that comes up and says the PPP was corrupt or the PPP was this and the PPP was that, well, guess what? You're exactly the same and worse, because you have been corrupt. You have done the same. You have done worse with state media. You have abused state assets. You have people who are just doing programs on APNU AFC every day, and guess what? It's streaming live over NC and over state media. Mm-hmm. You have advertisement done telling Low and Field, you do whatever wrong you want. We got your back. That's beyond being a rag. That is holding the Guyanese people at ransom, Leonard.
I hope you got your little brother back across here, because it's going to be blows in the coming days. Claudette Singh was not constrained prior to the court orders. She dragged her feet on the entire process. She's the reason Guyana is in this chaos. That is coming from one of the viewers, listeners. Good day, guys. Bless you both. I can't see why these APNU people are so blinded. I hope that they come to senses, and I don't even know what to expect anymore from Granger and Scabal. I'm so sick and tired of them. They're unbelievable. So there's a lot of anger over the situation, which is continuing. Thank you. God is in charge. I hope the people of Guyana get what they deserve. Let me see. What about Guyana Times? What do they call that paper? And Yog, somebody's asking.
I keep referring to two newspapers, and okay. I'm not working with any. I keep referring to Kaiser News, and I keep referring to Stabrook News. I am not working with any of these newspapers. I call it how I see it. I read these two newspapers, and I would subscribe to them.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's very frustrated and of much disappointment that the said people who would have been beaten out the PPPC about the land given out and mass corruption today have committed much more devious acts. In 5 years and 23 years of the PPPC, it's clearly today that we've seen the sheep in wolf's clothing. If you're now joining us, elections, COVID-19 watch at 3 o'clock, we're going to be taking a break. We're going to be bringing you live coverage from the Caribbean Court of Justice. There's going to be a key decision on elections 2020 to be delivered by the court. We could also tell you that at 7:30 p.m., which Yog is going to tell you a little more about that, we're going to have a big room 592. We're going to dissect that decision that is going to be rendered by the court in about an hour or so. So we want to tell you that this evening you should be in room 592 to hear from former Attorney General Anand Lal, who would have been one of the persons representing the opposition, the People's Progressive Party, in this particular case. Am I right, Yog, that he was one of the lawyers here?
Yes. Well, his party is represented there, right? Mm-hmm. And so he is a direct party. Tonight in room 592, to answer your question specifically, Leonard, we have asked Mr. Anil Nandlal to join us in room 592 to walk us through whatever is the decision at CCJ. As I said to viewers and listeners earlier, I am not enamored. Today's case for me, it was just a nonsense. The Court of Appeals case and everything. It's just basically delaying the declaration of these results to allow the PNC, to allow Granger and his corrupt cabal to continue to sell lands and to continue to give away contracts. That's what it has done. It continues to delay these elections. And for Granger to go say to the Washington Post that Mingo didn't rig, it wasn't the same Granger who said, I never saw an SOP, I only saw a spreadsheet. Wasn't it the same Granger who said on March 2nd these elections were well run? Wasn't it the same Granger who talked about flaking off? Yes, it is the same person. It's not no dual personality. It is the same person, maybe with a dual personality, but it is the same man who from 2019 said he's not going to sign any contracts. They're not going to do anything. They're not even going to travel unless it is essential. What have they said? And what did they end up doing?
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Yog Mahadeo. So I think we go straight to the phone lines now. Yes, good afternoon, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Gildarie. Yog.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
I'm calling from the East Coast. We are living on the East Coast, are not in support of the Guyana rag. The chronicle is exactly, and I'm 100% back of Dr. Yog. It is definitely a rag, and worse more than a rag. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear. So in the meantime, we go straight back to some comments. There's comment, good afternoon. Hopefully everything is going well today and ease the Guyanese people pain and suffering. Yes, the Guyanese people should be, the suffering should be eased. Hi, Leonard. My name is Stanley Mutu. Please disclose my ID. I'd work with your brother at White. Now, people, let me see. Can't read this. This is a little libelous. Good night. I had this question from earlier. Let's say that appeal court rules. My question is irrespective of how, can the decision be appealed at the CCJ as a said article under which the appeal court is purporting to use say that any decision of that court should be final? One can say that is that the Constitution writing the CCJ wasn't in effect, but the main factor at the time of the writing of the Constitution, the appeal court was catered for and was at the same time the final court. Why did the article still seek to use the words any decision shall be final, as the appeal court at the time would have been the final court making it finally respectively? Can there be any significance? I hope that you could explain my questions properly. And the same person would have come with a follow-up. Good afternoon. Is it known that they're not doing any post-mortem on people suspect of dying of COVID? Because if you have COVID, yes, but who knows if it was your blood pressure that killed you or a heart give out. I'm not sure about that if they're not doing any post-mortem. You have to find out. I rather suspect that you have to. Things by law, as long as you die, you have to do some kind of examination. Yog, any comments here?
Well, on the first one, if viewers would recall that we had a number of discussions in room 592. Up to last night, we had Kamal Ramkuran. Last week, we had Sanjeev. Week before, we had Anil. We had a number of persons there, and we discussed, this notion of the jurisdiction of the CCJ, right? Whether the CCJ has jurisdiction or not. And guess what? It's now in 30 minutes time, in 35, 40 minutes time, we will certainly know whether the CCJ sees that it has jurisdiction or not. So I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess or take that discussion further. In another half an hour, we will certainly know. With regards to the COVID-19 and whether people died of any other causes, Leonard, I think that, while we'll bow to more senior to medical advice, there are cases and there are diseases of which when people die, they're not, it's not advisable to do certain things. For example, if you bury, you got to be buried in a certain under certain conditions. But listen, when you have COVID-19, Leonard, you will die of anything because the disease just reduces you to nothing. So if you have an underlying diabetic condition or a heart condition or any other condition, whichever one gives out first because you're already suffering from something else, the COVID-19 would have then been the attached or the add-on cause, but the cause,
Yes, it is true.
underlying thing is there within you already.
Yes. Good afternoon, gentlemen. My question to you is, shouldn't the chairperson have a plan in place to act immediately regardless of what direction the court rules today? Or will we sit for another week only to find there's another court matter to delay and derail the process? Second point is, I hope these people that is acting as if there's a greater than the law, that they are greater than the law, should be held accountable and punished severely, including the ones who are giving away the state assets. Keep up the good work. Very solid piece here. Good afternoon, caller. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air. Yes, good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
Good afternoon, sir.
Well, we are all on tenterhooks waiting for the 3 o'clock announcement. I mean, hopefully it will clear the way for the Madam Chairman to make a final declaration.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing, I mean, you guys are part of it too. I mean, everybody keeps on saying God this, God that, God will help. There are two sets of Christians. Black Christians are praying for Granger to win, and Indian Christians are praying for PP to win. It's like a football match, it's like American football match. One side of the team is, one set of Americans are praying for God for their team to win, and the other team is praying for God to win. Do you think God gets involved in elections as well as football teams? There's hungry children starving in Africa. He doesn't do that. He's gonna make sure your football team or your political team wins. That is.
Let me answer. Yeah, go on.
One of the reasons that makes Ghana a shithole country is the amount of people that leaves everything to God. I mean, keep your God to yourself. That is, God has nothing in politics. Right? That's your private time. Keep everything just there. One of the reasons.
All right, caller. Yes. So
a key to a country, a shithole country, is the number.
No, you gotta stop. You gotta stop that. You cannot use those terms on open air or apologies.
Our apologies there. If you call in on the station there, we had to, unfortunately. But I think he had his point, Yog. But if you call in,
let me respond.
All right, good. You go ahead.
Let me respond. So caller, you have your views about God, and I have mine, and I believe that, when there are children starving, or when Granger is doing, and I disagree with you that Afro-Guyanese Christians are praying one way and Indo-Guyanese Christians are praying another way. I think all Christians are praying for truth and justice to prevail. All Christians, all Hindus, all Muslims are praying that may the sinners be dealt with and may the truth triumph over evil. But guess what, sir? Here is where I respect your opinion. You have your opinion, and I have to respect that. Here is my opinion. God also, by putting dictators in our midst, by putting starving children in our midst, God is actually giving you and I an opportunity to do the best we can to help others. We can't expect God to come do a miracle and remove Mr. Gildarie from Kaito News. We can't expect God to come to feed the children, but God has sent you and I to feed them and to oppose tyranny and to oppose wrongdoing and to speak out like what we are doing here. I believe it is my God-given right to oppose tyranny, and I'm doing it. I'm doing it as a duty, nothing else.
Thank you very much for that. So we want to remind you, when it comes to on air, let us keep the conversation clean. When it comes to our comments, let us keep it clean. We want to see everybody from all walks of life be part of this conversation to develop this country to take it to the next level. If you don't want to be part of it, well, go elsewhere, wherever you believe that you're going to be part of it. But we want to see like-minded Guyanese, people who are thinking progressively, to be part of this conversation. It's very, very simple. In any case, we've been monitored by the Guyana National Broadcasting Authority, and we have rules and regulations to follow. So let's keep it very, very clean.
And Leonard, let us not judge people. Let us leave that to God. He is the ultimate judge for everybody.
Thank you very much for that. Yog, there's another caller in line. Yes. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon, Leonard and Dr. Yo. How are you, comrade?
Good afternoon, sir.
I must compliment you. I haven't called a couple of days well. I must compliment you for the good work you're doing. Knowing now that as Guyanese, we are very frustrated as well yourself. We have waited so long, and we are waiting on whatever decision will be taken by the CCJ this afternoon. But I want to say, as Guyanese, we must no more be frustrated. We, the people, has the saying. The people who cast the vote are the people has the saying in this country. And I know to fact that Granger and his cabal, who is dilly-dally around the place and pussyfooting around the place, they will have no respect for what the CCG will say in the next few minutes from now. Guyanese people must now stand up, and we must take all necessary precaution when it comes to the COVID-19. And we, the people, elected a government and put a government there. And we, the people, must stand up now and say it is time for this nonsense and this trash to be done by Granger and his cabal, the so-called cabal who are there holding on and power to thief and to grab. And they have colleagues who are shamed. Those people, Leonard and Dr. Yog, they are shameless people. They're like an old saying, they wash the shame, they drink it, and they urine it out. Dr. Irfan Ali was elected as the next president for this country, and God is not an injustice God. He is a God that is fair, and I trust that he will put the right president, and so that the people can get great relief, and the chairman, Claudette Singh, I hope that she's going to move swiftly and do the right thing for this country and this nation, because I am saying, you know me, Leonard, you know I'm a party activist. Justice Claudette Singh, former Justice Claudette Singh, as the chairman, a former judge, she knows what is right, she knows what she has to do, and she should start getting it done by this evening or by tomorrow, and not allow these people. She's giving them too much time and multiple times to pussyfoot around the place and dilly-dally around the place. And lastly, I want to say to Granger and his cabal, we the Guyanese will not stand and allow him to do what he's doing anymore. We did not come in this world to live forever. I'm not calling violence and speaking violence. But we will not allow a dictator and a man who is hungry for power and who wants to destroy this country. It is time now for Guyanese to stand up and to speak. Thank you, and Dr. Yog, and God bless you.
God bless you. Do have a pleasant rest of the day. Good afternoon, guys. It's amazing in any form of authority that a top head of an organization, which is a chairperson, can tolerate someone under their authority not to carry out the duties as per instructions and follow the rule of law and not to do anything about it. It's something to be frowned upon. So, Yog, in a few moments, the country will, you're saying that we should not really, put hang our hats, maybe say, pay a lot of attention, because it all comes back to GCOM and what GCOM is going to do now, because they have the authority in that. So let us see what happens. Do we expect it to be a very long decision this afternoon, or it's going to be maybe short?
Well, it's not going to be long. It is not going to be a long at all. And that's why they put it for 3 o'clock and not 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 1, because it is basically they handing on their decision. And remember, the decision is, first of all, whether they have jurisdiction, and 2, if they don't have jurisdiction, that's it, finish. If they do have jurisdiction, then, what would be their opinion of what the Court of Appeal decision was, and so forth and so on. And Leonard, one thing that I think for sure, going back to this last call, and let me comment on what Banmati Jean Ram would have said. One thing for sure this election has taught us is the politician's definition of honesty and integrity. How the politicians value honesty, integrity, and God. That has certainly been on open display for the past 128 days.
Mm-hmm.
So Leonard, just to take it a bit further though, because we got to be careful here, that because the caller said that he hopes that Madam Chairman would act expeditiously. Look, the one thing that we know is that Madam Chairman does not sacrifice doing what she sees as the right thing for the sake of expediency. In other words, she doesn't rush into action. She takes her time. I believe she allows every player. We might not agree with her way, and that is okay to disagree with her and her style of doing what she has to do. But one thing for sure, she has allowed everybody to have their say. And everybody, please recall that the last statement that the chairman brought out, Leonard, 3 weeks ago now, when she said GCOM is not a court and GCOM is not going to do this and GCOM is not going to do that. So she allows everybody to say what they have to say at great risk and great hit on her good name and her good character. She allows us all to beat her up. And she eventually comes out, and after having allowed that, we see it as a very long process, and yes, it is long. She comes out with a decision, and I think what's going to happen, Leonard, whether we like it or not, over the next 2-3 days after today's decision, she will allow Lowenfield. She will give Lowenfield an opportunity to come with an accurate report. She will allow Lowenfield and the GCOM secretary to do their job. And if they push her in a corner, do not do their job, then I think she may have to find that she will have to take action. She could do it in the first place and stop all of that, but then she could be accused that she intervened in the process. So I'm not making an excuse for the chairman. I know the chairman has her own, she's a legal luminary. She knows the law, like the back of her palm. So she knows well what she's doing and why she's doing it.
Yes, thank you for that. And there's some news coming in here, not anything to do with elections, but of course on this radio channel, this radio station here, we would bring you things of interest. And we're hearing now that a warehouse has collapsed at Bank ZIH. One person has been killed, and we want to say our deepest condolences. It's a big company, one of our biggest drinks company with DDL. And if something like this has happened, of course, we want to say we hope that everybody else has escaped with the least amount of injuries, or none at all for that matter. So one killed in a warehouse collapse at Bank ZIH. There's an industrial site area. So that is coming in now. In the meantime, while we develop on that, it is said at this time that there's a mother of all elections, but it appears as though this mother does not care for a child. That's us. Hence a delay in the process. Politicians, wake up your conscience. Guyana waits the government. There's a caller line. Quickly, caller, good afternoon, you're on the air.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes, go ahead. You're on the air. Go ahead. Hello? I think we lost that.
We lost that caller.
Yes. Apologies there. So, in the meantime, let us say very quickly, if there's another thing. Bringing in God into politics is not the way to go. We are all equal and God's children, and if a few is misbehaving, the majority has a right to bring them back on track according to the laws of our country. We must not forget that the enemies pray and have bones also. Rawan, for example, but God, good always triumph over evil. That's one thought. Let me see, there's another one. All right, I think that's it. There's another caller on line. Caller, good afternoon, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Yog.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon to you too, guys. And Justice started saying she's not the head of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So she can make the decision, right or wrong.
Go ahead.
No, that's what I want to say.
Thank you very much.
She's the head of the house. If somebody what she appoints that what can't do the job, but they're under her, she's the boss. She can do whatever she can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay then.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But Leonard, let me just respond quickly to that one. I know we're running out of time, but
Yes.
let us just say, ladies and gentlemen, just supposing on March 13th or 14th, after Mingo made that declaration, the chairman acted swiftly and took his report and made a declaration. Then we would have all said that, she acted in haste and she should have waited and so forth. So guess what? In a matter of 2-3 minutes, we're going to join, a couple 10, 12 minutes, we're going to join the CCJ and we'll take it from there and see what's next. But, so far, the chairman has taken her time, Leonard. And, one cannot argue. While we are not happy that it's taking so long, but certainly you see that there may be a reason why she did not rush into judgment.
Yog, and this is a conversation that we should have some way along the line, if not this afternoon, tomorrow, sometime or the other. There are rules and regulations, and I think this elections has brought it to the fore and even brought our awareness to another level. You cannot have a chairperson just making it just like how you can't have low and feel. He's not a creature on by himself that he could pull figures out of the air without any justification and say, here, Yog, you take it, and that is the declaration that I'm making. It does not have any groundings. And if you give it to me as a boss, as a GCOM chair, or as a commission with the six commissioners that are sitting there, and it is not grounded in any kind of science or anything, you got some serious issues. And I think by the same extension, and I guess you could argue it a little better than me, Yog, which is, you cannot have organizations that are operating out of the law. And I see people saying that Claudette Singh should make declaration. Claudette Singh has to follow. If there's a court order that is stopping her from doing it, she cannot go ahead and make that declaration. And by the same time, she cannot act without a figures or the figures being given to her by the GCOM staffers. We could argue that she could probably appoint somebody who is going to cooperate with her, because if Lowenfield is not doing it or giving her the wrong figures, you replace him. It's very, very simple as that. You just have a meeting, and I think there's mechanisms within GCOM to hire and to fire. If I tell Glenn Lal tomorrow morning that I am not going to do any editing, Glenn Lal has a right to send me home. If I'm stopping the entire process or stopping his newspaper from doing something, he has a right to fire me, and I think he will fire me if I say that to him. So there's nothing wrong with that, and the laws and the mechanisms are there for that to happen. So I think Claudette Singh knows that everything has been exhausted. She's going to come and say, Lowenfield, please do what you're statutorily or whatever it is you're mandated to do. Bring it to the commission so we could be able to make the necessary decisions, so we can move it forward. If he does not do that, he's going to be fired. So let us don't put it this way. It's very clear. Whether there's a decision for or against, it comes back to GCOM this afternoon. After that, the way is going to be made very, very, very clear. If the Caribbean Court of Justice, like Yog says, my little understanding of it, I have jurisdiction, therefore I overturn the Court of Appeal decision. Therefore, it is very, very clear. Valid votes, this should have never been a contention. It is a contention, so we're dealing with it in the Caribbean Court of Justice. The GCOM is going to be very clear in its mind what is the way forward. So I think the Madam Chair, we have been beaten on her, rightfully so, because she's sitting there, the box stops at her. But at this point in time, has she done her job admirably or not? Those are things that we'd have to flesh out at a later date. We'd probably, in terms of not having a repeat on it, we have to analyze it. We have to bring closure to that entire thing. Over to you, Yog.
Hopefully in a week's time, we'll be assessing the chairman and her decision. Hopefully a week from today, Leonard, Elections Watch will start to turn its attention to Guyana Watch. What is happening in Guyana, and what are we doing about all those fraudulent contracts that have been signed and all those illegal land that has been shared out and stuff like that, because we got to now continue investigating what's happening there. Just to close that point off, ladies and gentlemen, remember also, Claudette Singh has entered into a seat in which her predecessor was hired for one thing only. Patterson was hired to swear in Granger, to declare Granger. Regardless of how these elections went, Patterson was hired. Can you imagine if Patterson was the chairman of GCOM? This thing was overdone, long gone, right? But, to her credit, she's held out. Leonard, so coming back to it, tonight we're going to be assessing this. And I would want to encourage everyone, if you get some time, look at what Kamal Ramkaran would have discussed last night in room 592. And his reasonings for some of the hypothetical scenarios we put to him for what might come out this afternoon at the CCJ. But certainly, tonight we'll be looking at that. And Leonard, I just want to tell everybody that regardless of how it comes down today at the CCJ and our discussion tonight, we are going to get Mr. Freddie Kissoon back in room 592 on Friday night. to
Oh,
close off the week and to give us an assessment of what is happening on election landscape in Guyana. So those are some of the plans you and I have, and I'm thankful that you allow me to share it to the users on this program here. But it will recall for a lot of analytical assessment, and I certainly hope that I can echo by tomorrow or next day what Sister Jean is saying. Bye-bye, Mr. Lowenfield. God bless you.
thank you very much for that. So we are making arrangement as we speak now to get Freddie a new smartphone so we could be able to see him. Freddie, Freddie doesn't want to come to the studio, Yo. That's because we want him to come because he has, whether we like it or not, the guy says it as it is. So we're gonna try to get
Yes.
him a smartphone over to him so he could be able to do his stuff. He said he's gonna stay away from the studio. He wants to protect himself against COVID. So that is going to happen, and he has a lot to say. So in the next couple days and weeks ahead, our people would have to come they have to be very strong. There's some tough decisions to be made. We are going to keep an eye very clear. The microscope is going to be on Irfan Ali or whoever is going to go in there, because it's not going to be an easy ride. The people are going to be very intolerant of any slackness, any deviations from any promises that would have been made, and we want to see results. We results oriented. We want to see the oil deal be looked at. We want to see COVID-19 being addressed in a very holistic, a very strategic manner right across this nation. We want to see help coming to our people. We want to see, with regards to elections 2020, we want closure. We want answers. We want people who would have been playing a role to making or stopping it, delaying the process, frustrating the process, frustrating this country, stopping progress. We want them to come to the table. We want to see what role they would have been playing, and if possible, criminal charges against these people, because this is absolute nonsense that you have a handful of people could hold 700,000 persons, and then of course we'd have to add all those people abroad. Whether we like it or not, our diaspora has been playing a very, very important role in the country. While they might not have been here, they have been making the voices heard. Nobody's been paying attention. We have almost quarter, I would say, of the people who've been tuning into our show, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, they are from overseas and they want to help. A lot of them have been talking about coming back to see whether there's something that they could do. Because if you look at the US, if you look at Canada, the Europe, and so it's becoming tough there. So people are looking elsewhere. And these are skills that we may want. We've been talking about for years. Politicians has been going to New York, to Canada, and telling, come back home, invest. You're gonna become a remigrant, and we're gonna see how we could facilitate. There's actually a big movement now. People really seriously thinking, but coming back and benefiting from the oil and whatever else it is. And of course, we're talking about benefiting from oil, billions of dollars sitting there, and we're not getting anything proper out of it. So we need all that to be relooked, and for people to really benefit in a big way. Lots of work, and it's not going to be easy. We have to be strong. We're going to be, if you believe that Yog and I were rude during this time, it's going to be another level in the coming months, and I think as long as we hear Yog, the conversation has to be on progress, on the way forward, on making this country a first world country. Simple, very
Correct.
simple.
Thank you. And Leonard, that is indeed well said. And I want to acknowledge what Nanda Prasad, the question she sent for you. She said, Leonard, if Glenn need to fire you, if Glenn need you to do your job, he's not going to allow you to take 4 months to do it. He'll fire you on the
I
spot.
know.
You'll have to address that with Glenn. But Leonard, there is another dimension to this thing, and I have to say this. Look, since last week, the PNC, the band of merry men that lack moral ground, they have gone on an all-out attack on CARICOM and on the CCJ since 2 weeks now. They have attacked CARICOM leaders, the CCJ. And it is because of CARICOM, because of the CSME, because of our agreements with the various leaders, that Guyanese are allowed to stay in the islands, allowed to work in the various places, allowed to live there for X amount of times, and they become naturalized sooner or later. Why all of those that are attacking CARICOM and attacking the CCJ and attacking the United States and attacking all these countries. Why they don't burn up their passport? They don't need to go anyway. All of them who are living in all these countries, pack up your stuff and come home and come and live here under this corrupt government that we are living under and face the heat. Everybody out there that are backing this morally bankrupt government, they're backing it staying far away. They don't want to be touched by it, but they want us to accept the brigadier and his band of merry men. Leonard, I want to appeal to the Caribbean brothers and sisters, to all of you Trinidadians and Bajans and all across the Caribbean. The thing that these people have said over the past month about your leaders and about CARICOM and CSME and CCJ, please know that the PNC does not represent, Basil Williams does not represent, Harman does not represent a majority of people in Guyana. That's their personal views, and it will remain personal. They're telling you to mind your own business does not represent the people who voted in the March 2nd elections, Leonard. And that has to be said because they have embarrassed us over and over again with all the countries.
Thank you very much for that, Yog. As we come down in a few moments, we're going to take a break and then be back with you right here on Kaicho Radio with the coverage from the Caribbean Court of Justice. You could get us on Kaicho Radio Facebook. You could get us on Kaicho Radio YouTube. We're streaming live there, that coverage there. And of course, 99.1, 99.5. If you're up in Berbice, you get 99.5, 99.1 for Demerara and Esquibo. So we are coming with you all over. So you have options there. If you don't want us on Facebook, you take us on YouTube. It's all there. So, Yog, as we wrap up, we want to say to the people that we're going to be back with you after that decision. We're going to be back with you sharp at 7:30 p.m. in room 592. Dr. Yog Mahadeo is going to lead the way there as usual. And we have with us no other than Anand Nandal, former Attorney General, who would have been one of the very senior persons advising on the court case that's before the Caribbean Court of Justice there. So Yog, very quickly, know that you mentioned it, but let's bring it back here again. What is it that some of the things that we're going to be discussing this evening?
Well, we'll be discussing the decision of the CCJ. Whatever decisions they hand down, we're going to discuss the pros and cons of those decisions and the impact that that decision will have on the applicant in this case being the PPPC. And also, what would be the impact of whatever that decision is on Lowenfield and the GCOM secretariat giving the chairman the advice so that she could make a declaration for these results. In the meanwhile, viewers and listeners, do not forget that there is purported to have been a meeting between the diplomats and Mr. David Granger. And that meeting was supposed to have been along the same lines of let democracy prevail and let the truth triumph. So we're certainly looking forward that Mr. Granger will do the right thing. Mr. Granger can for once do the right thing and concede his defeat. Harman has conceded what? Concede your defeat at the March elections. Concede your defeat. Concede to whom? To the people who voted you out. Full stop.
So in addition to Dr. Karen Cummins, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, they've also met with the President as well?
Sorry?
Do we have are we getting reports that the diplomats of the ABC in the EU country would have met with President David Granger as well?
We don't know the details of the meeting. We do know that there is supposed to have been that meeting that detailed as to what is expected. Because remember, Leonard, a lot of persons are looking ahead as to, a lot of people in Guyana and out of Guyana are looking ahead as to the fact as whether the international communities cannot make more direct messages to the rigging crew, to the brigadier and his crew, to say, these are the sanctions we're going to impose. Here is the people's visas we're going to take away on day one if you don't do this. And I'm hoping that such direct conversation will start to happen. You and I know, Leonard, that the ambassadors, they're very diplomatic when they talk to the public, but when you talk to them one-on-one, they're very, very, very direct. And it couldn't be better said than what Mike Pompeo said. Instructions has been passed to hold those people accountable who have been part of this rigging.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Well, that's been a wrap with elections and COVID-19 watch here on Kite Show Radio. And so we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere because we're going to bring you right here on Kite Show Radio our coverage of the CCJ's decision on the appeal from the Appeals Court of Appeal in Guyana. The Caribbean Court of Justice is handling that case, and it's supposed to hand those decisions down starting 3 o'clock. So we're going to be back with you at 7:30, room 592. Anan Landlal is going to be there to bring you his take on what is happening on the way forward. Dr. Yog Mahadeo is going to be there. Myself, Leonard Gildarie, is going to be there. Thank you very much. And from the team at Kite Show Radio, good afternoon to all, and have a pleasant rest of the afternoon. Stay safe, and until then.
COVID-19 tips sponsored by Dex Soap. 1. Practice social distancing. 2. Wear your mask when leaving the house. 3. Wash your hands regularly for 20 seconds using our Dex Soap. 4. Cover your nose and mouth with a disposable tissue or flex elbow when you cough or sneeze. Choose Dex Soap for that extra cleanliness. Dex Soap is affordable and available nationwide.